When I build a piece of furniture or a workbench, I try to put the utmost care into it, try to do it to the best of my ability, and really I think about how long is this piece going to last. So really when I'm building something, I'm thinking super long term. I want their great grandkids to be able to inherit the piece that I make for them. When I build a piece, I'm thinking about joinery. How is the joinery going to be substantial enough that it's going to stand the test of time? And you can simply look at great works and see the joinery that has worked and that has not worked. And also, I really like to incorporate, details in the work, and obviously that's based on the client's request, but I'll put inlays in there if they want inlays, and, joinery again that, gives it a little extra spark. I just made that up. Yeah, that was just all improv. Hi, my name is Frank Strazza. I'm a furniture maker living in the hill country of Central Texas. And I build fine furniture. I've been building furniture now for the past 30 years or so. And I build one piece at a time. I build anything, tables, chairs, dressers, even some instrument making. As of late, I've been building workbenches, high-end workbenches for clients. I was actually taught early on using a lot of hand tools. So I use a lot of hand tools in my work. I find that using hand tools really enables me to be able to custom make something to the client's needs. But I also use power tools as well. But in my work, I'm building high-end pieces where I incorporate inlays, all solid woods, and traditional joinery as well. So hand-cut joinery, including dovetails, mortise and tenons. So the tools that I use for my work are ones that have been used for hundreds of years, as well as the joinery methods. So my first recollection of having any interest in woodworking was when my mom bought me an old egg beater drill when I was 7 years old. That was my first recalled interest. However, my great-grandfather in Connecticut was a home builder. The story is that I built a small little stool in his basement when I was 3 years old. And I actually have that stool to prove that I did that. So when I was 11, I cut my first dovetails. And when I was 12, of course, I chose making a blanket chest, which is a fairly big project for a 12-year-old. And I had a lot of help, but I made all hand-cut dovetails on that blanket chest. It still sits at the foot of my parents' bed. And so it's stood this many years. But I remember at that age, at 12 years old, I remember knowing that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, is be a furniture maker. When I was 17, I had an amazing opportunity to be able to do an apprenticeship. And I worked with a Swedish man outside of Austin. We were building furniture out of solid wood, but it was out of reclaimed longleaf pine. This was before reclaimed was a thing. This was back in the 90s. We were getting some amazing beams from old buildings, huge beams. These things were like 16-inch square timbers that were coming from old buildings, and resawing them up. And the wood inside, and most of this wood, the beams were 100 years old. We date the wood back to 200 or 300 years. And we were primarily making early Texas style furniture. And we had a little store in Fredericksburg. We'd sell the furniture there. And so having that experience was wonderful. After that, had the opportunity to do a journeymanship. And the advantage of that is the ability to be able to learn different ways of working, because different craftsmen in different regions work in different ways. There's always things that you can learn by working with different people. So I've, just had a lot of great experiences over the years, and a lot of opportunities to be able to have the proper training, which I think is something that's harder to find these days. So I think having the opportunity to be able to start when I was young, when I really didn't have to make a living at this, and be able to really hone the hand skills early on was super, super beneficial to me, because going at this later on in life, it's a difficult road because there's a lot of hand work that goes into it. I mean, and over time, the only way to really make a living at doing this is to be able to produce something fast enough that you can actually get it completed and get it to the client without having to charge something that, you know, would just be out of reach. I think being able to have those years of accumulative day in and day out of working with the tools and working in the craft, that has enabled me to be able to get to the speed where I can actually create something to make a living. You know, and people have asked me, you know, well, what could I do to, you know, if I wanted to make a living being a woodworker? And, you know, the first obvious answer is keep your day job because it's a lot of work. And the thing that I'm not discouraging anybody from actually being a woodworker for a living. It's wonderful to be able to create every day, all day with my hands. But it's a lot of work. The thing about that is somebody may go into it with a love of the craft. But sometimes when you mix the love of the craft with trying to pay your bills day in and day out, that can kind of squelch the love of the craft. And so that's my only reason for saying, hey, take it slowly, maybe go part-time at it and just see how you feel about it. But definitely you'd never want to squelch your true love of the craft. Of course, if it doesn't fit, you just get a bigger hammer. Watercolor artist. So I asked him, I got permission from him to recreate this in marquetry. You know what's interesting is I've found that sometimes the most challenging pieces in the end are the most rewarding. And I've chosen the color, the tone of the wood, I've chosen the grain, and even sometimes within the species. And sometimes you're in the middle of a piece and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing or how I'm going to get through this, or you know, you run into issues. But if you keep on keeping on with it, in the end, it's really, you look back on it and you say, wow, that was really rewarding. One of my most rewarding pieces was this piece that I did called Roses. It was a table with roses inlaid into the top of it. And I did a bouquet of roses in marquetry inlaid into the top. It was mahogany, and I incorporated a lot of different woods. But in some cases, it was the first time that I had done double bevel marquetry, and I had incorporated some different elements, stringing. I had done some stringing, bellflowers, houndstooth dovetails for the sides. That piece probably took in the rough neighborhood of maybe 500 hours to build. But looking back on it, it was really rewarding. There's so many small details, but the way it came together and how much I learned in that piece. And you know, and it's amazing how you can draw inspiration from so many different sources. I remember the first rose that I did in marquetry, I was, wow, this is great, I'm really proud of this, and I showed it to my mom. And her first response was, that's nice, Frank, but I think you could do better. And that comment inspired me to do better. And you know, it's like without that comment, you know, maybe I wouldn't have gone to the next level. Let's see, late 2000s, I suppose, I got to help with some cabinets that we did for the permanent collection of the White House. It was kind of a group project. There was a few of us craftsmen working on it, but they were mesquite cabinets. They were given by an outgoing president to be part of the permanent collection of the White House. And before that, made some carved eagles with 4-foot wingspans. They were all hand carved, and then they were silver leafed, and they were used as Christmas decorations for one Christmas in the White House. And there's so many different factors that really motivate me, whether it be, something as simple as a freshly sharpened plane. I mean, that's just, it sounds simple, but the truth of it is that you're working along and, the plane is getting dull and it's not cutting, it's a slow process, but then you sharpen it up and the first swipe and wow, it's like, this is amazing. It really works so good.